Hi, I'm Dr. Kyla, paediatric dietitian, fussy eating specialist, and mum of two. I'm the founder of the online mealtimes memberships that help parents just like you experience a confident and guilt-free way of feeding children. I'm also a business owner, a hot cross bun lover, and my superpower is finding things that you cannot live without. In this podcast, I'm talking about feeding your family, along with a random selection of topics that tickle my fancy. Welcome to Mealtimes with Dr. Kyla.
Hi everyone, today's guest is Susie Prout from Susie Prout Lactation. Interestingly, Susie and I have actually had quite a long shared history. We went to high school together, did we remember that at the time?
I don't think I did at the time, but
no,
then
I feel like we didn't connect the dots.
Yeah, we did it. Yeah.
And she was actually one of my first clients when I started my business Mealtime Building Blocks, which was a home visiting service for kids with feeding difficulties. So that was your first boy. And I was actually, coming out to your house, which we, again, didn't really connect the dots until later. But the thing I love most about Susie is how serious she is about making positive change for mums in the land of breastfeeding and bottle feeding. And I feel like, Susie, I've learned so much from you personally. Like, I remember you coming and helping me when I was having trouble with breastfeeding for my youngest. And you also got me onto keratin treatments, which obviously have changed my life for the better. So some of my favorite things about you. Welcome to Mealtimes with Dr. Kyla.
Amazing. Thank you. That was a great introduction. Loved it.
It's very varied. To see about me, I like all sorts of different topics and I'll put them all into one little thing. All right, let's get started with the entree. I feel like I was probably shouting a bit then, so I might just tone down my volume. This bit is about your experience of mealtimes as a kid. So just generally, tell me about what mealtimes were like in your household growing up.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you even know this, but I grew up in South Africa. I didn't grow up in Australia. I moved to Australia when I was 13. So the majority of me learning foods and bits and pieces were, in a very colonial South African experience. So the things I remember is it was very prim and proper. We were always at the table. We were always dressed. We were always, manners was a huge thing from the, not in a negative way, but it was an expectation of us from really, really little. Lots of 3-course meals with grandparents that we would sit through, and just for some reason I thought I would have a negative connotation to it, but it was okay. The main thing that I reflect back on is my dad not so much. I think it was on my mum during the meal times, but my mum didn't have a good food, bad food thing, which I think back in the 80s, there was a lot of that. So there was a lot of like treat food, lollies, things in this drawer in the house. There was never a discussion about that it was off limits or anything like that. Obviously, she's not going to let us run there all the time, but we never had you can't have that and whatnot. So when friends would come over, they were wild for our house because it was limited at their houses. And so I would always think it's super strange that kids would come over and then just keep wanting to go look in our cupboards and
the lolly house.
Yeah, see what we had. And my sister and brother and I never really went to it because it was just there. It just wasn't anything, we knew we could have it at points. And so as much as had a very, like the expectation of us being at the table and eating what was there, at the same time, there was never anything about the type of food that we were eating, which I think for the three of us, I think I can talk for Taryn and Craig as well, my brother and sister, we've never thought of food being bad or food being good, or because mum just never spoke about it, which talking to other people, I think in the 80s, that's not that common.
Yeah. So the rules were more around like how you behave around food as opposed to like what you can and can't eat.
Yes, absolutely. So it was how we sat at the table, how we held our knife and fork, were our elbows on the table, like how we cut our meat from really early on, and then not getting up before we were allowed to get up and things like that. There were some things I was just messaging my sister last night when I was thinking about this. And I said, oh, do you remember when Mum used to make us eat our peas? And we used to call them like rubbish bin peas because that's what we thought they tasted like. And sometimes I reckon peas do taste like that when they've been sitting.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, they don't taste that nice. And we used to, no, Mum, not the rubbish bin peas. And we used to sit there. And so she did, I think there were times when she made us sit there and eat things.
Yeah.
But I think I don't feel like she was too strict about it, because I feel like she probably was like, oh, actually, it's fine. But yeah, the main things about my upbringing is certainly just how we composed ourselves around
I have
meals.
so many questions. One, do you eat peas as an adult now?
No, don't eat peas. No,
Isn't that funny?
I eat them in like a stew or something if they were there and it arrived on my fork. But no, and I don't tend to serve them because I just never think about it. It's not something I ever think, oh, let's go and get some peas. Yeah, interesting.
And you said you had to get dressed for dinner. Is that like you had to
Yes.
change your outfit like into a dinner outfit?
No, so we couldn't. So let me just think. For example, like breakfast, we had to be out of our pajamas and in clothes. Dinner time, if we were dirty, we had to be in clean clothes, kind of sorted out. Not in dinner clothes, but we couldn't just be sitting there in like mud-filled clothes or, like I know for now my kids come to the table like in undies if they want, there's no, that would never have been allowed. And my kids, often they lie on the table with their heads on the table because they're whinging about something or, a foot makes it onto the food.
Oh my God, I feel seen.
That was not us. But then obviously I didn't take that, to say that was the best way, because I've never done that with my kids.
Yeah. It feels like a lot of effort.
Yeah. Oh, so much effort. For what really? Because we were just at home eating dinner. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll have to notice next time I eat with you how like well you use your knife and fork and things.
Yeah.
What did you eat as a kid? What kind of foods were regularly on the menu?
Okay, so very traditional food like roast meat and 3 veg, lots and lots of roasts, stews. Don't have great memories of those, but I know that we definitely had stews. Very meat heavy. Being in South Africa, we lived in an area called the Transkei, which was like the game farm area, so very meat heavy. There was always, chops and steak and lamb and things like that, and it was always a meal. Like I know certainly for my kids, like anything goes in terms of if I feel like the dinner needs to be Weet-Bix and fruit bowl, then I don't mind that. But we never would have had that as a child. Like a meal has to have some meat with the veg around it. If we had like spaghetti bolognese, Mum would always make like a proper salad and some bread next to it and have it on a proper plate, where I would just give spaghetti bolognese in a plastic bowl with nothing else for my kids. So yes, it was all very traditional, and lots of if we did have like grandparents over, which we had a lot, then it was like starter, main, dessert, the whole hog sitting, So it was a long process. Things changed hugely when we moved to Australia. Things became more Aussie, because back in South Africa, Mum didn't do the cooking because she had helpers. So it was when she realised she had to do everything, it was very different.
The salad fell off the table and she was like, oh, stuff that. I'm not making 45 meals.
Why am I washing a lettuce? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's interesting. Do you think you were a fussy kind of eater or a fairly adventurous eater, or just kind of somewhere in the middle?
I was pretty adventurous. Yeah. All 3 of us, I would say, were adventurous. Mum said she's never really had an issue. And the other thing is though, we also had this idea, because we had such a big family in South Africa and we all sat together. I think I used to sometimes feel a bit nervous as I was getting older, a bit nervous at the table if I didn't eat, or if I didn't, pretend that I liked something. Like it was a bit of a show.
Yeah.
But certainly when we were little, when we were little, we didn't have fussy, and my kids are fussy now. So it has been a big change, actually, quite confronting to see when you don't grow up like that.
Yeah. And I'm really interested to kind of hear more about that. And even like your parents' perceptions of that, whether, they think, well, like we did it this way and you weren't fussy. So maybe if you kind of took some of our rules and put them in with your kids, which, we've learned a lot about, I feel like, in the last little while. But anyway, let's get into the main then. So tell me about kind of your experience of mealtimes as a parent now. Thinking like in this current moment, what does a typical family meal in your household look like now?
Oh, now, okay. So during the week, my husband Andrew is not here. He works away. So Monday to Thursday, it's the kids and I eating dinner. I will sit with them and pick at things because I'm getting a bit hungry, but I prefer to eat a little bit later. So we were eating at about 5:30, and then I've pushed it now because my older son, who's 10, he then gets hungry and wants a whole nother meal at 8:30 before he goes to bed. It's like 4 hours where he's been running around. So he was having, 2 slices of Vegemite toast and a yogurt and a milk and things when I'm like trying to get him into bed because he's like ready for his next meal. And I was realizing that actually we should push that a bit so he doesn't feel so hungry. So I'm trying to push it to 6-ish, but then I do sometimes find with my daughter that she's wanting to eat earlier. So it gets a bit tricky when you've got the big gap, the 3 kids and there's a bit of a gap. So we do about 6-ish. My boys, they're 8 and 10, they're very good now. They will sit at the table. We try and do best thing and most tricky thing of the day, and we chat about some things. But Emma, yet my youngest, she doesn't last that long at the table, and she's up and off, and she's still, whinging about the food, and that's not what I want, and goes off in a huff. And I know from experience, I kind of just leave it. I'm like, all right, well, we're here. Like, we're still here.
Let us know when you want to join in again.
Yeah, it's here. And she comes back, I think, because she realizes that that's all that she's going to be. We're not going to be pandering to her and running over and giving her different things. So I have a really positive experience now. It hasn't always been like that now with my boys, and they are fine to try new things. They're not perfect, but they're good enough. And then with Emma, I still feel like she has a lot of anxiety around what's going to be on the table, and but she has a lot of safe foods. Obviously, I've worked with you a lot, and she is getting there. But I do, as soon as the dinner's on the table, I know that it's going to be an issue. We have a lady here who lives with us, a helper in Indonesia, and so she does a lot of the cooking, and we've had to, this is very different, I guess, Australia, but we've had to have a lot of discussions with her about how I manage it. And I do feel like with Emma, the reason she has taken so long to get where she is because we've had a nanny. And when we were living in Jakarta, back when she was little, we moved when she was 3 months old. So all of her solids journey was away. In hindsight, should have seen this. I used to leave her a lot because I used to go off with the boys, and if it was her lunchtime, the nanny was there, and I'd say, okay, just give her whatever. And the Indonesian way is you follow someone around with a fork, and you literally like, oh, you don't want that, have that. You don't want that, have that. Come on, eat one more. And she's had that where I think I didn't pick that up until quite late.
Yeah.
And I think that's why she's taken a long time. And certainly with our nanny now that we've had for a few years, she knows my way now, because I'm like, okay, don't, just leave it. Don't say anything. I'll manage it. It's you just, don't worry about it.
And it is tricky, isn't it? Because like feeding somebody else's child, it does feel like, the measure of success is how much they eat. So there's a real like want to please you by getting her to eat well, and then you're like, no, that doesn't please me, that makes me more worried. So like, how do we undo some of these kind of assumed?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And for them, like an empty plate and a full tummy is just, they just absolutely love it, and they can't quite understand how we do things because of the way they, the way their culture is. So that has definitely been a thing. But I do find that we do get there. The mealtime is a little bit staggered in terms of, the boys are finished and then she's making her way back to the table. So I end up feeling like it's quite a long process.
You've got two sittings.
I've got two sittings.
When do you think things changed for your boys? Like, when did mealtimes get easier, do you think?
I would say my middle child has always been my easiest. He's never really had too many issues, but I would probably say when my oldest, who was very fussy, turned about 7, then he just grew up. And certainly he's 10 now, but certainly the last year, because he's had to do things like go on school camp where I'm not around for 4 or 5 days and he's eating Indonesian food and spicy things, and he's going on sleepovers now and going out to families he just went on like a Saturday morning to Sunday night kind of birthday party.
Jeez.
Yeah, they took them. It was a whole thing. I would not be doing that. 2 hours is my
with other people's children.
yeah. But now it's just because he's had to grow up and realize like he's going to take control of this. I'm not around. So I was nervous about him because it did take till about 7 for him to be all right. But you wouldn't know it now. My middle bit one's been fine. So I would say we've been good for a couple of years with the boys, but I'm not out of the woods with Emma. I think I've got a good few years still with her and her nonsense.
It's interesting though, like even when you have really fussy eaters, and I know that your oldest had like a number of kind of contributing factors into why that was tricky, and it's really like a game of trust, isn't it? It's about building that confidence that actually over those 7 years, I'm not going to force you to do anything that you don't want to do. I'm going to like offer the opportunities. But when you get to a point where you can trust yourself to have a go at something and nothing bad happens, like those kind of learnings for them really breed confidence. Like every time you try something and like you're able to take it out of your mouth because it didn't feel right, means that you can try it again. And so then you get to a point that when you get to school camp time, you might be like, this isn't the way I like my spaghetti at home, but I can cope with it. I don't necessarily love it. I wouldn't be cool. Like I think my 6-year-old is very similar to your 10-year-old in terms of personality, in terms of lots of things. But I feel like she's much more capable now. And I can see it kind of even building only in the last year or so to have a go at something and be like, oh yeah, that wasn't what I thought. I'm okay to leave it without feeling like she had to please anyone or put on a show or any of that. Would you say that?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And it takes a long time. And I used to get so concerned thinking it's never going to change. Like, how is it ever going to change? But it does. And I can't believe that it's actually, it's come full circle from him having 5 foods.
Yes. Which is wild, like that is such
wild.
a stressful experience. Tell me more about what you remember from that time.
Okay, so I remember just being really disappointed in myself, thinking it was my fault that from starting solids at 6 months, he was just difficult with textures. So going from the smooth purees onto anything with lumps was a problem. Finger foods was an issue. And so I thought to myself when he was a baby, it'll just get better, when he's a toddler, it'll get better. And then it didn't, and then there's a time, as you know, it then just gets worse because then they start to really only have a few safe foods. And being your first as well, you just think, it's all I've done something wrong. Like, why has this happened? And then I was also thinking, okay, something must be wrong with him. Like he can't be, inverted commas, like normal, like I was thinking, how can he be so fussy without something like actually wrong? I didn't know what, but something. So there's like a lot of worry. And then when the food, I think when I saw you, the safe foods were so narrow that I thought imagine if he stopped liking these safe foods, and then what, or where are we at then? And then I was pandering to it so much because I was like, okay, it's got to be exactly like this, it's got to be exactly like that. And then, as we said earlier on in the chat about parents, grandparents, and everyone having a bit of a say, they love to just say, well, this is how I would do it, and this is the issue, and you just got to make him sit there. And so that was an issue. And you do feel quite alone, because then you're going to, mothers group picnics and all these things, like, what should we get for the kids to eat? And you're like, nothing for mum.
Yeah. Don't you think you're wired to like notice other people's kids who eat a lot? Or in the opposite way, if you have a child who eats a lot of food, you notice these kids who seem to eat very little. And so you're just constantly comparing.
Constantly comparing, and certainly with the first. And then when I saw you and I understood the process, and Andrew was there, thank goodness that he was there as well to understand the process. And then as soon as I'd seen you, I guess I'd had Toby, because then I think they're only 18 months apart. So then I was busy with that. And I still probably didn't follow the process until Toby was, a bit older, and I was like, okay, I've got the time. And then it all kind of started to flow, and I started to relax and be like, okay, it's fine. But there's certainly times like where, you're like, they're starting school and it's such an issue with the lunchbox, and you couldn't even imagine like getting canteen food, because that would be so different. People just ordering, things from the canteen. You think there's just nothing that he would be happy with. Yeah. Certainly now, the school the kids go to now, they have like lunches at school. No, it's not a canteen. It's like in America, they have school lunches. Not Emma's, she's in early years, so not yet. But that's been amazing for my boys as well, in that they can choose, but it's a school lunch, so it's different, but everyone's doing it, and it's quite fun because there's a few little bits and pieces you can have. And that has certainly been, rather than just the lunchbox I'm making, I've certainly noticed that American way that they do, where they all sit down and they have to have these foods that they don't know what's going to be there until they get there. I was a bit nervous, but actually I've found they all just sit together and no one's telling them they have to eat. The teachers are not bothered. It's been actually really positive to watch that.
Yeah,
and
how interesting.
It works. Yeah.
And I think that lack of pressure is so critical, right? If there was a teacher standing over him saying, like, you have to eat everything on your tray, I feel like even if you like it, that changes the way you experience that meal.
Yes. I said when I went to the canteen to look at it all, or the lunchroom, I said to them, what are the serving sizes that you give them? Because that was my concern, that they'd get this like lump of lasagna and they just want to go play football. And she said, no, they're very small, and they can come back for more if they want. But the initial food that they get is very small. And I think the boys have never been like they couldn't finish, because by 10 minutes, they want to go. Like, there's only 40 minutes of lunch and they want to go play football. And so that has been quite good. And because it's Indonesian food, they've certainly done better than I thought they would do. We'll see when Emma gets there, how that goes.
We'll report back. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, though.
Yeah.
Do you plan your family menu ahead of time?
I try to. I have I'm always thinking I'm going to. On a Sunday, like I think a week ago when I got back from Australia from the Christmas break, I planned it. And that was great. And then things happen. You have a busy weekend. And then I don't do the online grocery order, and then I don't plan it. So what usually happens is our helper I'll do the online grocery order and go and get some things, and she'll go to like the wet market and the places that I can't go to. And so we do have to have a discussion at the beginning of the week about the different types of things. But living in Bali, you can't always get stuff. You think you're going to be able to get mince, and then it's just not there. Or, some days they might have like wraps or taco shells, but they're not for 2 months. So it can be a little bit tricky, but I discuss it with my helper and we try and make a bit of a plan. I would say 9 times out of 10 at the moment, we're like, on the day.
I identify
Yeah.
very strongly. Always the best
Always.
intention on a Sunday, and then like the
Always.
week after. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gradual. What would you say is your family's favourite dinner, and why is it a winner?
Now I was thinking of this, and this it's really different. It's cool, and I think it's a winner with the boys because they make it themselves. Emma is tricky, but what my helper does is she makes like a fried rice. I don't even know if it's fried rice, but it's rice. It's really easy. It's rice, and then it's got like the frozen veg mix of carrot, peas, corn. Come on, yeah, that one, and then pours that in. It must be fried with some soy or something, and then she puts some salmon in it as well. So it's like a salmon-y rice thing. But the fun thing about that then we buy the seaweed. What are they called? They're just like rectangles of seaweed. You can just eat them as a snack. And you get those and you put them on your plate. And then what you do is you get a spoonful of this mixture and you put it in the seaweed and you make a little parcel and then you put it in your mouth, which is really fun at the moment. So it's actually really tasty. And that was an idea from a friend over here. And so at the moment, the kids are wanting that all the time. They want to make their parcels, roll it like a sushi.
So do you buy the big ones like the nori rolls, or you buy like the little snack pieces?
Well, it depends what we can get here. The last time we could just get the snack pieces, then it's quite tiny. Otherwise, you can get the big ones and then you can they scoop it up, and it's quite a fun. The thing is they're quite, as they like to do things. Then the more they can do at the table, the better, because it's like a fun thing of making things. If they can make, their like burgers, if they can make their own, and then that's more fun for them. So yes, at the moment that is the favorite. We'll see how we go. They usually get bored.
Yeah. Is there something that your kids won't eat despite it regularly being on the menu?
Yes, cooked broccoli they will not eat. They will eat the raw, and I think it's a bit soggy as well. Really, it's quite the tree is not like the night. One of my sons was saying, the tree doesn't stand up; it like goes over when it's cooked. So if it's like in a stir fry or something, it gets really wilted and falls over, and it's like all slushy in their mouth. They are funny about cooked vegetables. They're very good with eating raw, but they find them a little bit slimy, and I kind of do sometimes agree. They would be much better. They always ask if we are having like, carrots and broccoli and bits and pieces. They'll always say, "Oh, can you just leave it? Don't just leave it. Like I'll just eat it like that."
Which is a really nice way of being considerate without catering to a whole different meal, right? Just leave it out of the steamer or the stir fry.
Yeah. If you'd rather just have like the chicken stir fry, if that's what you want, and but you have them raw and you dip it into the sauce or something like that, then and they've always been a bit. But then I also think that they sometimes one says, and this is what I've been going on about. I lost my absolute mind the other day because Emma was doing really well at the table. I can't remember what we were eating, and then Toby had to say, "Oh, what was it? It was something to do with, it was some chicken thing." And I mean, Emma knows that a chicken comes from an actual real chicken. Yeah. She gets that. But Toby had said, "Oh, was this chicken killed today? Was it flying around in the morning?" And I was like, "No, stop." And then she was like, "What? What do you mean? Where did you get it from? Did you see it? What color was it?" So, and then it was a disaster. So, and if they do say if the boys say one thing about the food that's negative, she picks up on it straight away and she's running off. So they have been warned many times, just leave it.
It's also an easy target though, isn't it, for an 8-year-old boy to just toss a little comment into a conversation.
Love it. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's gold. Do you know one thing I've recently done is started doing broccoli in the air fryer, just like little florets and just olive oil, and it's like very different from a texture point of view. Yeah, crispy and like tasty. Like it has a very different flavor to steamed broccoli. So
I'll definitely be trying that. I'll definitely be trying that. Definitely.
All right, so let's get to the good bit. I guess when I notice on your question boxes on Instagram, lots of people who follow you love to hear about the expat life of living in Bali. And when I was in Bali last year on my little retreat, I visited you. We went out for dinner, had drinks. It was awesome. So I guess these kind of questions are a little bit more about your lifestyle because it looks super fun, but I imagine comes with its own set of challenges. So tell me about what you kind of miss most. What do you stock up on when you come back to Australia? So food or anything, what's in your suitcase going back to Bali?
Okay. So one of the, and Jakarta and Bali, I've spent a lot more time in Jakarta, but really they stay the same. They're the same in terms of food, the same country. The main thing that's a problem in Indonesia is the grocery shopping and the options, like the snack options. There's not really a snack aisle, just little things, not necessarily even like treat things, just stuff that you would use in lunch boxes. So I go completely crazy when I go home to Perth. And luckily, Indonesia doesn't mind how much food you bring in or what types of food you bring in, because I know that you could never do this going home to Perth. You could never pack literally 25 kg bags of just food.
So like muesli bars? Have you got a suitcase of muesli bars? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I literally would buy, I'm not even joking, 40 boxes of muesli bars, take them out of the boxes and put them in an airtight container and just pack them like that. And then, then I put them away because I know that when Harry goes and has before school swimming a few times a week, he wants to have something like that because you can't get muesli bars here. So we'll do the muesli bars. When we lived in Jakarta, I haven't done it in Bali because it's a bit easier. In Jakarta, we would get a esky in Perth and get pork. So you can't get pork. So I'd get, frozen pork sausages, bacon, whatever I needed, and literally take a whole esky of pork and then just take it by the time. And because it's cold in the airplane, by the time I got back to my Jakarta house, everything was still frozen. And they don't mind if it's for personal use. That I can't imagine taking.
You're not starting a pork industry on the side.
No, I'm not. Yes. So there was that. But now it's a lot of things like baking supplies. You can't, vanilla essence or baking powder, or I'm sure they're somewhere here, but they're certainly not in the supermarket. And like those cake mixes and oh my gosh, things like any of the taco mixes or the slow cooker mixes, and like I'll get so many of them. Vegemite's not an issue here. Honey is a huge issue. If you want to buy honey here, the same honey that we'd get at home, you'd be spending about $70 for a honey here. It's just because it's imported. Anything imported is so expensive. So mainly that, and then I literally buy the whole of Pharmacy 777 and bring that back as well. As much as I literally can, as much sprinkles, as much as I can, I just chuck in.
I would just love to see your suitcases going through the scanner. They're like, oh, this lady's opening up a baking shop in Bali, apparently.
What's she doing? Yeah, they don't seem to mind.
How funny.
Yeah.
And all right, so next question. I know that you have recently taken up the scooter life. I was taken for a little ride on the back of the scooter because it's just impossible where you live to go in a car. Like it would take hours to get nowhere.
Yeah.
How do you get around as a family? Like you got 3 kids.
Yeah.
What do you do?
It's tricky. So in the week when Andrew's in Jakarta, my nanny has a scooter as well. So we each take a boy on the back and Emma goes in the front between our legs. It's not ideal, but she stands in the front and kind of sits between us. She's very good at doing it now.
Was she scared to do that initially?
No, loved it, but was no fear. Was moving around too much. I'm like, no, you do not move around. You don't touch anything on the steering. You don't be pressing things. So my nanny arrives for school drop off. So she comes and we go in convoy. I like to see, even though would definitely be a better scooter driver than me because she lives here. I can't have the kids out of my sight on a scooter. I freak out if she got caught with a red light or something, and then I didn't see her for 5 minutes, I'd break down. So we kind of go in convoy. Should we take the kids? And then at school pick up time, we do the same. And then on the weekends, we can do it because Andrew is here. But I do find, I was saying to a friend here the other day, I never thought that 3 kids was a lot of kids until I moved here, and I was like, I can't physically take all my children somewhere. Like that is really annoying. And now though, like the other night, we had no water in the villa, so I couldn't wash dishes. So I was like, right, Andrew's away. It was a Sunday. I needed to get dinner for the kids. So nowadays I can actually order a Gojek, which is a bike, someone, like a taxi bike. And when they arrive, I just put Harry on with that guy and just be like, we'll follow each other to where we need to go. So we're getting there. I worry about it all the time. Like, it's not something I'm like, oh, this is really fun. But at the same time, there is no ways I could car, especially with shortcuts. There's like the Canggu shortcut, all the different shortcuts where nowadays it's becoming more and more that you can't have cars here. They won't allow cars through shortcuts and they won't fit. And so
how long would it take to get to school if you were driving a car?
So if the traffic was bad, so if I go,
which it always is.
It always is, yes. If I go on a scooter, it takes me 2 minutes. It's only 1 kilometre, but a car, you could be 40 mints.
Yeah,
because you're just in a row of cars. You're just waiting for the row of cars to go. So, yeah, we get there, but it's different.
I'm impressed. I mean, I can't even, like, riding my just like bicycle with a child on the back is wild experience. Yeah. Like, I'm so wobbly. Yeah. I can't even imagine having 2 on there. Plus, you're like also a bit anxious about the traffic. Yeah. Plus, like, everyone's tooting at you.
Yeah.
School bags. I didn't even think of those.
School bags, yeah. So yeah, it is. It's insane.
Look at all the skills you've learned that you never knew.
I know. Never knew. Never thought.
Other than being able to ride a scooter with multiple people on it, what is one of the biggest benefits of living overseas with a young family?
Okay, so when they were little, now not so much, but when they were little, having the help of a nanny is just amazing.
Before we get any further, tell me about this life, because tell me the gory details of having somebody to help you with the day-to-day things. Like, what does that look like and what does that mean for your life? Okay.
But for my life, so here in Bali, our lady lives with us because we brought her from Jakarta, because when we said we were leaving Jakarta, she was so sad. She's only 28, so she hasn't got kids or a family or anything. She was like, oh, I'll just come with you. And I never thought she'd leave Jakarta. And so I said, sure, we'll find a place where you can live with us. And luckily, this house we're in now, and a lot of houses are like this, they have a staff area. So it's not in your house, but it's a little room connected to the garage. I mean, it's very nice, air-conned and things. So she lives here, and for safety, she needs to live here because Andrew's away. If someone got sick at 3 a.m. and I'm going to a hospital, I need someone here. So for safety, she has to be. So she will come in and help me with the kids to school. Then she comes back. It's amazing talking about this because it's just like, why I know in Australia this is why
it's like listening to like this incredible story. Like, yeah. Tell me more.
No, she comes in, and because the houses here are so big and they get so dirty here, I'm not sure I don't know what it is, the dust. In Perth, you don't have to clean your house every day, but here it's dirty. She will clean up the kitchen from like when I've been in doing all the breakfast stuff. She'll clean that up. She'll go make the bed. She'll grab all the washing and she'll do washing, and she'll clean the house in the mornings. So the house is completely done. The washing is completely done. Oh. And then, I know. Then she goes off and has her time. And then she comes back and we pick the kids up. If I were to take one to tennis or one to football, she's helping with others because it's, one's going to be home or whatever. And then she'll cook the dinner, whatever I've decided. She'll just do some bits, not always all of it. She'll cook some of it. And then she's just around if I'm like, oh, Minnie, I just want to go and get something from this shop or whatever. She's here for the kids to just be here because she's lived with us for so long. She knows us so well. And the kids think of her as like a family because she's always in the house. So, and then she'll clean up the kitchen. She might go back to her room for a bit. She'll come back about 8 o'clock. Sometimes she might just see if she needs to clean something up. She'll get the school bags out. So essentially she just does all the work that I don't know how we live in Australia and not go insane. It's actually incredible how we do all of that. at home.
Well, I think we are all going insane.
Yeah, yeah. Because she really, I mean, she's working most of the day doing these things that we all do at home. Yeah. So, and then she, if we want, we can pay her extra and she'll babysit, like for nights out and things like that. But the downside, there is always downsides to everything. So I love it, and I know how blessed we are to have this life. The downsides are you don't know who you're getting. Yeah, when you do get a nanny, you have no idea who these people are. Not Minnie, she's fantastic. The helper before Minnie, stole from us for about 2 years money,
really?
Which we didn't realize. And friends have had other issues because you don't know, who these people are. And so you've got to be careful in a sense of leaving things out. And not anymore, because I trust her completely. But when you're new and you don't know the life, so there's that. Different ways of parenting. So from a different culture perspective, if you are working and you actually got a nanny to look after kids a lot, it's very much a different way of parenting. So you got to look at that as well. And then the other thing, which I've got totally used to, but I didn't, and some people can't handle someone in their space.
Yeah.
So I'm never home alone, like ever. So I'm not walking around in my undies. I'm not, if I really want to yell at the kids for something, she's watching.
Reporting back.
Touching away. So there's that type of thing as well. But really, it really is the way that we just feel so relaxed here, because we haven't got that burden. And when I grew up in South Africa, it was the same. We had helpers. Just that burden that we have in Australia of so much to do, it's just relentless. So it
sounds like with this way, like you can give up the stuff you don't like and actually just have more time to be with your family without that looking around you being like, oh, that needs to be done, that needs to be done, that needs to be done.
Yes, definitely. And so I don't have a nanny as such, because I don't need that, because I have the time. So I can do what I want with the kids, knowing I haven't got to get home to cook dinner, or I can swim knowing that I haven't got to come in and get things sorted. Yeah. So that is certainly changes how you parent, because you haven't got things on your mind that you've got to get done. Yeah, for sure.
It's the mental load, they're taking away a significant chunk of the mental load.
Yeah.
And you're paying them for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it sounds like a dream.
Yeah. We pay them, and we pay them well, and we look after them well, because they're looking after your children. So I know people come over and are like, oh, you can just pay, a few dollars an hour to a nanny here. And I'm like, well, why would you? Wouldn't you want to pay more? Because, they're literally looking after the most important things in your world. So it's
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, so I could hear about that for days. Just people doing jobs for you and you just having fun. Oh, amazing. All right, so we get to the end bit. Tell me, this is something I ask everybody. What is the weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
Right. This was something I really was thinking about a lot. I think it probably was when we were living in South Africa, and we would go to these game farms. So with all these different animals, and I was little, so I can't remember exactly what animal it was. It was some kind of game, and it had been killed, and they were just slicing off bits of the meat of this animal that you could still see it was still had its fur and everything on, and then would tiny little slices of it, really thin, and then putting salt and bits and pieces on, then just eating it. And so that was, I can't remember it actually. I think I was all right with the fact of it, but that when you actually can see that animal is still an animal,
it's what Toby was telling Emma about with the chicken.
Yes, exactly.
That had red feathers, and it was flying around about 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, so that would be my weirdest thing, I would say.
Do you reckon you could do that as an adult?
I don't think so. I'm a bit funny. I'm certainly not a vegetarian. I never will be. But when you put the two and two together, it makes me feel weird. And I think that's probably quite normal for a lot of people, is you can you can be eating something, but when you realize, for me, like if I'm eating a steak that's really rare and there's blood everywhere, you can eat it, but if you actually sit and think about what you're doing, it's a bit weird. Yeah. So I do often
And I
get
do think there's something different between like your logical thought about it and then visually seeing that kind of animal in front of you is a very different experience, isn't it?
Sure, for sure.
Yeah, wow.
Absolutely.
So I'm guessing that's not what's for dinner in your house tonight. What is for dinner, or have you not decided yet?
No, we've decided. Tonight, I've been waiting. So there's no fish or fresh things in the supermarkets in terms of like, I want to get some salmon and I've said to Minnie the other day, our kids have not eaten much fish lately. We eat a lot of fish back in Perth. And this is the thing, is that like we can, as much as I talk about the benefits of helpers, it's actually impossible to live here without one, because jobs take so long. You can't just go to Coles and get everything you need. It's like you go there and then you got to go to the wet market and then you got to WhatsApp someone to get your fish, and then you've got to go and get your quinoa from like another little shop, and it's a whole process going out and getting what you need. So anyway, there's a fish guy in Jimbaran Bay, which is where they do all their little fish, and a friend had said, oh, you message this guy and he'll tell you what they go out in the morning and they get the fish and they tell you what they've caught and then they'll deliver it to your house. And so I've been waiting because I wanted some white snapper. I've been waiting for like 5 days, and every day he's like, oh, we caught this this morning, and then today he was like, oh no, we have caught white snapper today. So I know, dropping it over. And I said to Minnie, I'm not sure how they're going to drop it. Are we going to be deboning this and cutting it all, filleting? This is how you have to get your fish here. Again, why? I would never have the time to do this. She probably doesn't have the time either. But we're going to try. We're going to try and make crumbed fish tonight.
Yep.
And hope that there's not too many bones in it. So that would be,
And what will you serve with?
I think we're just going to do fries and salad. And have a fish and chips night, and just, again, really wanted tartare, couldn't get it. That took me about an hour to find. So I spend a lot of my time just trying to find things that you would find so easily in Australia, and you just can't. But anyway.
I feel like there's a little side business for you there, like a little Aussie kind of import beers. How funny.
I know. Yeah.
It's so nice to talk to you. Tell me where people can find you if they A, want to see more about your expat life, or B, join something like your breastfeeding membership or your bottle refusal course.
Yeah, sure. So I hang out on Instagram, Susie Prout Lactation. I know there's things like TikTok and things these days, but I just feel like I can't do more than one, and I won't be. So I'm over at Instagram, and you can find all my links through there. I do have the bottle refusal program and the learning to breastfeed, which in a membership. And I just chat about random stuff, really, a bit like you and yours.
Queens of the random.
Never come today. Yeah. So that's me.
So good. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, awesome. Anytime.
See you now.
A huge thanks for tuning in and listening to my podcast. This is all brand new for me, so I'd love to hear your feedback. Give me a review or send me a DM. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And above all, I'd really love you to hit that subscribe button to keep listening. Thanks.